Well, we're now negotiating with Iran with tomahawks. I'm not an I told you so type of guy, but as I said in my last podcast, called Iranian Strike a foregone conclusion, the attack on Iran was inevitable. I said that negotiations would fail. I said that negotiations didn't have a chance, that they never had a chance, because that would require the Ayatollah, who calls all of the shots, well, he called all of the shots, he's dead. But I said that he would never, ever abandon his archaic obsession of turning the entire third planet from the sun into one big Islamic world. We already saw this movie. The core problem, which apparently eluded the Obama and Biden administration, is Iran is simply not trustworthy. Iran has been at war with us since the late 70s. The fanatical religious Ayatollah, who make no mistake calls all the shots, despises us. It will never compromise nor stray from their stated Islamic goal of converting the entire planet Earth into or under an Islamic republic. There's no possibility of compromise. There never was. No path of an agreement as long as the Ayatollah is in power. Forget what the Iranian diplomats say. We already saw this movie. What may seem to have been sudden was in fact the culmination of years of mounting threats leading to an urgent decision by our leaders now who saw no alternative but to use force, and a president who didn't shy away from the enormous risk of taking it all on. At the heart of his decision was the nuclear threat. For years, Iranian nuclear activities have crossed threshold after threshold after threshold that, quite frankly, American and Israeli intelligence considered to be intolerable. Even after past so-called agreements, Tehran continued enriching uranium at levels that shortened the time to deployable nuclear weapons for themselves and for their terrorist proxies. This was not a hypothetical worry. This was not a war game or a what-if theory. And I would think that this is something we can all agree on. I would think that, but I'd be wrong. Many on the left, bizarrely, feel that if Iran desires nuclear weapons, they ought to be able to have nuclear weapons. No words. In any event, if Trump's doing it, it's by definition wrong. This relentless enrichment of uranium was seen not as civilian peaceful developments. For that, you only need to enrich about 3%. But it was seen as weapon-grade armament. So waiting would be catastrophic. The time to act was before Iran crossed the red line, not after. Really, the time to act was about 10 years ago under President Obama. But his plan apparently was to sneak a pallet full of cash over to Tehran in the middle of the night. And Biden? He didn't have a plan. I guess you need a pulse in order to have a plan. Trump, on the other hand, acted decisively and legally. The War Powers Act of 1973 allows the president to deploy forces into hostilities as long as he notifies Congress within 48 hours of doing so, which he did, and continue operations for up to 60 days without formal authorization of Congress. This law implicitly recognizes presidential authority to initiate limited hostilities. There's a lot of precedent with former presidents. So long as the president reports to Congress, again, which he did, and the conflict stays within the time limits of 60 days, the actions are lawful. It should be noted that the last time Congress actually declared war was against the Empire of Japan the day after infamy. The left all of a sudden have a big issue with this. No issue under Biden, no issue under Obama, no issue under Clinton. But when Trump did it, as I said, by definition, it's wrong. Anyway, this threat was not even just about nuclear, as horrendous as that is. Iran's missile capabilities have grown in numbers, they've grown in range, and they've grown in sophistication. Iran could strike U.S. personnel and U.S. bases and allies across the region at will. In addition, intelligence indicated a credible risk of Iran attempting a first strike on U.S. bases in Qatar, Kuwait, Bahrain, and the UAE. In a preemptive campaign, Operation Epic Fury would save lives by blunting or destroying those capabilities before they could be used. The idea being that it's easier to take out the archer than it is the arrows. This threat was real as it gets. Iran's leadership, embodied by the former Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei, had spent decades cultivating networks of proxies, terrorists, and militias that repeatedly have targeted and attacked American and American allies. Tehran's support for groups like Hezbollah and its sponsorship of terrorists across Syria, Iraq, Yemen, and other places created a security tinderbox that could ignite at any moment. Tolerating this network was tantamount to accepting a perpetual cycle of violence and terror in the region and beyond. And this cycle was likely to continue if Khomeini's son is chosen as the next Ayatollah, which seems to be the likely case. President Trump wants to have some input into who leads Iran, not to choose, but to have input, similar to having input into accepting who led Venezuela after Maduro took the one-way flight up to Brooklyn. So in this light, the strikes were also about regime pressure and, oh hell, let's just call it for what it is. Yes, it's about regime change. That's what this is about. This was not a reckless gamble. It was a gamble, but it was not a reckless gamble. Even after months of negotiations, futile efforts in my view, as I said, and even after offers as generous as free nuclear fuel forever, they were rebuffed by Iran. Force was the only language that Tehran would understand.
دوباره زد.
Operation Epic Fury has entered a new phase, a shock and awe campaign to trigger regime collapse. U.S. forces have taken complete and total control of Iranian airspace, and now it's showtime. This is twice the amount of firepower that we use in Iraq, and we're using next-generation tech. an unlimited stockpile of 2,000-pound GPS and laser-guided precision gravity bombs. High-powered laser weapons fired by the Navy are microwaving Iranian drones. And long-range, high-speed precision strike missiles are hitting targets with pinpoint accuracy, first time used in combat.
From this vantage point, the operation was not seen as an act of aggression, but one of strategic necessity to prevent a nuclear nightmare, to blunt growing missile development, and to dismantle networks of terror, and to enable the Iranian people to have their country and their lives back, free from this 1,000-year-old religious extremist. The Iranian people, like the people of Venezuela, are good people who only want what we all want out of life. Remember that. So in the stark calculus of national security, waiting could be worse than acting. And for the architects of this campaign, the cost of hesitation was just simply too high. And Trump wasn't having it. Hey, thanks for stopping into O'Reilly's Corner. Hope you guys enjoyed being here as much as I've enjoyed having you. And do me a favor on your way out the door, just smash that like and subscribe button. See you next time. Thanks again.